All right, welcome everyone to a brand new Poker Player podcast. I'm your host, Andreas Fröhlich, and in today's episode, we got a Team Party Poker pro, longtime professional poker player, Twitch streamer, soccer enthusiast. He's married and recently became a father. Welcome, Jeff Gross, to the podcast. How are you doing?
Doing great. Thanks for having me.
All right, the first question I always ask, how did you make the decision to get into poker full time?
Yeah, I think it was one of those things where I played video games, I played board games, I loved competition, so it just sort of naturally came up when I saw people playing and I realized you could win money. At the time I had played a lot of FIFA, a lot of Grand Theft Auto. I was in high school, and when I saw you could actually win some money playing, I was at that age where starting to look at ways of generating revenue, and it just seemed like a really good fit. That there was some I think naturally I was pretty good at board, just games in general. So when I was playing with my other friends who really hadn't, there was no strategy, there was no one knew what the big blind, what positions were, what starting hands were. So it was just kind of like everyone was just learning and going at this. So I kind of just figured out, I think generally had some pretty good feel, and then it just sort of transitioned from one thing to another, and it just kind of fell into my lap. I mean, it was just the right place, right time, where poker was brand new, and I did pretty well without having a lot of information, studying or anything. It just sort of, and also I was playing soccer. I played in high school, and then in college I played at the University of South Carolina. So it was really nice to be able to pop in, pop out. I didn't have to, I want to go, if I had finished classes before soccer practice, I want to play some cash games for a couple hours, or when I'm studying, I could have a table going on the side, like one table or two tables. It was just really convenient for what I was doing and what I wanted to do. So it just kind of transitioned and progressed into what it's become.
Now, I read your bio, and when you were in South Carolina, you actually took already shots at 10-20 at some point. I think that was about in 2009. And can you tell me a little bit about when you finally knew that soccer wasn't the way you were going to go, and why you decided to go for poker?
Yeah, so I had great relationship growing up with my coaches. Pretty much every single coach, I was either, whether I was a captain of the team or just really buddy, good friends with the coach, and would talk strategy and was so into it. And then when I got to college, I didn't get along with my coach for whatever reason. He knew I was playing poker. And I got some other players on the team kind of interested in it and talking about it. And just one of those things, we just didn't mesh very well. He's like Bible Belt guy and just really old school, and not really didn't have a ton of was pretty one-dimensional in terms of how he looked at things, and I just think that we didn't really hit it off. And then I just kind of was realizing that I started looking at some of my friends that were a couple years older from Michigan. They were very, very good soccer players, I'm talking national team level players that were really good. And I saw them go to MLS, and then I started hearing they're getting these contracts. I think it was there's $40K, $50K a year. And it was just kind of well, wait, what am I, it's so hard realizing, is that really what I'd want to do? And I've kind of lost a little bit of the luster for the game. Plus, I just kind of realized the ceiling and how hard it was to be a US player to break in. And also, regardless of all that, the reality was I just wasn't, I wasn't going to be a star soccer player and make it to the next level. It'd be a very, very unlikely and hard journey if I wanted to go that route. And I just kind of lost my fun of the game. I loved it so much, but as I got to college, I liked it less. And truthfully, it was perfect for me because I was playing at a high level. I was on a Division I soccer team. I got a partial scholarship for athletic academic, and I was having a blast. I was going to practice every day. I didn't have to really worry about the games. I wasn't I could go out the night before. I wasn't having to in terms of just having fun or staying up late playing poker, and then getting to train and be a part of a group, like a fraternity, if you will, but without the drinking as much, without the craziness, and that lifestyle was like a team. And it was exactly what I wanted. So I was fine. I was keeping in shape. I was playing in practice and having a blast and playing soccer. And it was just kind of perfect thing for me. So I didn't really mind. And then I just was really getting so much into poker at that point.
Okay. And then you also, at that point, were your roommate was Michael Phelps, right?
Yeah. So I went to I met Mike in 2006 in the summer. So I was, I guess, a sophomore at the University of South Carolina, and I'm from Ann Arbor, Michigan. He went to school at the University of Michigan. He was from Maryland, and I met him playing poker. I met him in Canada at a poker table during the summer because you had to be 19 to go up there. And I would go up, was playing, and then ran into him. Didn't know who he was or anything. We just kind of got each other's number. I went on a vacation a week later, came back, had a message from him. He's like, why don't we drive up together? He picked me up. He had a 7 Series BMW. And I was like, what the hell? You know, like, what I know, like, what do you do? I was like, this isn't from poker, because I played poker with them. And we were like young and playing 1-2 and whatever. And then we started talking, hit it off, became very, very close. And then all of a sudden I moved in with him right when I graduated. So he actually came down to South Carolina a couple times to visit, but on the last time when I graduated, he was there, came there, and then we drove back with my stuff. And I moved in at the end of 2008 until like 2015 or roughly. And then he moved to Arizona. I moved to Vegas. I had met Amelia. He was engaged, and then he started having babies, and now I just had my first son. But yeah, I lived with him after college. So he went to Michigan. I went to University of South Carolina, but I met him during college and then lived for 7 years with him in Baltimore.
One of the things that I wondered is that, talking with Michael Phelps a lot about, just poker and then also sports life and everything else. Is there something in particular that you think you learned from him poker and sports, swimming was his life, right? And then you saw probably a lot of dedication. It's like a total understatement, but something that you could relate with. And then you saw, and then you maybe have been questioning yourself whether you would have the same for soccer or poker. And then that leading to your making a decision, or is that not the case?
No, I definitely, there's no question living with Mike, things rub off on you. To be the best in the world at, not even just the sport, but talking the Olympics and the history of the Olympics, 23 gold medal, second has 9. It's obviously he's doing, he did some pretty incredible things, and you definitely kind of pick up on some of that stuff and work ethic and dedication. But it was different. We had a lot of similar interests. It was just sort of one of those things where I realized that what it takes to, kind of be the best, you have to really just get immersed in the craft. And I would say that it was nice to share a lot of similar interest and we had a lot of the same drive and a lot of the same passion. He also really loved poker, so it was fun, to talk with him, and he would play some poker and whatnot. But I think there's no question that when you're around people at that high level, that you're gonna pick up on some character traits and some things that you see that are working, or some things that you see what it takes. So it was definitely a treat, but I wouldn't say it wasn't like that shifted or changed my life or anything, but it was definitely like it was a pretty cool experience. Not to mention the places we got to go, the trips we took, the experiences, the people I met, and sort of opened up my eyes. To at the time where I was playing a lot of online poker and wasn't really moving around a lot. So more so about, I think, the experiences and getting to see some of the world and going to some of these pretty unique places, got me sort of thinking a little bit more about what I want to do, how I could get there, and those type of things. So I think that was maybe the biggest inherent advantage or benefit from all that.
That actually leads me to the next topic, which is going to be, you dabbled a little bit between online poker and live poker, and then Black Friday hit you in 2011. And then you also said somewhere that this was actually maybe a blessing that happened, because then you just got to experience your poker life in the next following years, just in a much different manner, because of being being able to play online poker anymore.
Yeah, no, listen, my routine was for years where I was living there, and it would be like, first of all, I had always had such a regiment in my life, such a structure, school, very intensive high school, homework. I played travel soccer. So it was a lot of always doing, always not really a lot of relaxing. And then in college, also played college soccer. So when I got out, it was sort of like, all right, this is great. I'm going to just relax a bit. I stopped working out. I wasn't training. And I was eating pretty unhealthy. Drinking a lot of beer. We were playing a lot of beer pong. I was playing poker all the time. My general day for a year or two period was probably wake up at like noon or 1, roll out of bed, order Chinese food, and play this full schedule. It would be like literally out of bed, maybe showered either at night or in the morning. And then I would just literally, like full tilt or, start. These sites were running like just tournaments all the time were great. It was just like, all right, like I'm going to hop in this thing starting at whatever, I'm just in. And then all of a sudden I would play, and then it was either, at night were we going out or was there stuff like people coming over, and then I would maybe stop registering, then I would start drinking, have dinners, and then be up late, and then I would wake up and do it again. So like that was sort of where what my routine was. But then when Black Friday happened, it was pretty crazy because it was just like, whoa, like, I mean, that's generally basically what I'm doing for money was this. And now I can't really do that. You know, I had some affiliate programs going. I had some other business stuff happening that I was involved with, but it was not at a high level. And I was pretty relaxed at those times. So, and I think that was a huge shock for me, but also, like I said, yeah, looking back, that got me to start playing live cash games, traveling more. Did some other things, was traveling around to tournament stops, had some decent tournament success in the live circuit, which I hadn't been playing at all. You know, and it just sort of all kicked into gear. So I think that it's just like a perfect lesson that in life, it's not about what happens, it's how you react to what happens. And stuff's going to happen. Your routine's going to get mixed up. You're going to get, you know, I don't want to go be extreme. I just had a baby. I'm saying, you know, someone might get pregnant. You might have an unplanned this. Someone may pass away. You might find out something's not right, or you might get in a car accident or a wreck or some kind of annoying, or things happen that are not as planned, but that's part of life. And sometimes you can maybe even shift into a positive or a kick you into gear or jumpstart you. So I think it's just important to, you know, we're creatures of routine. And I think sometimes it's routine isn't always the best thing. And it can be a really good blessing sometimes when things get changed, when they may not seem that way. And for me, that was definitely the case. Like looking back now, you know, it was perfect. And at the same time, if you had Twitch, if you had told me there was Twitch, that time, and I was playing all those hours online poker, and there was Twitch, then that would have been more ideal, because I would have been building it from there. I would have been using what I was doing daily, you know, recording. But like technology's different now, equipment's better, internet's better, all these things. Everything kind of happens for a reason, and you know, I think it's great. And I just think, again, how it all sort of morphed out, I wouldn't change it. And now looking back, even though at the time I would have said, man, this is really bad.
Yeah, I mean, it's a really good statement that the way you react to events happening in your life is so incredibly important. And that, you know, in the end, Black Friday actually led to you having a better routine. You would say so, right? If you compare like the routine, you said you were, you know, getting up late, drinking a lot in online poker. But when you were traveling and playing live poker, you actually started developing a better routine, or isn't that so?
Yeah, no, I mean, for sure. I started working out again, started getting more fresh air, started sleeping better, started doing things more balanced. I think, you know, also similarly to sort of divert, I think with Twitch, part of my frustration with Twitch is that I can't really stream where I want. You know, I can't stream the US, like here, for example, at my office. You know, I'm not playing online poker. I would love to stream 3 to 6 times a week, every day, wake up, click go live for 4 hours. But I see a lot of the top streamers that have got burnt out over the last 3-4 years. You can look at any of the top names. They've had episodes of burned out. You see now they're stopping to stream. So in a way, it's sort of a mixed blessing. I think that although I'm not as a top consistent, that I get to really, when I stream, it's like, I love it. I miss it. I want to be there doing it. And although it's like, oh, it's so unfair, it's kind of like, well, you know, maybe it wouldn't be as good, or I wouldn't be as happy if I just streamed 5-6 days a week for 8 hours or whatever, you know? So I think, again, it's like you just, sometimes you have to find the positives in what you think is not an ideal situation. And that's something that, you know, I think I can attribute to a lot of things in my life. But like, it's also like thinking about it, like you see some of the Jason Koons, Ike Haxtons, some of these guys at the top level, Justin Bonomo's, and name could go on. And look, there's some absolutely out of this world poker players. Like, you know, at some point, I think I'm a very good poker player. Am I a PO solver, wizard, sorcerer? Like if I hop in those 50K, 100Ks, like against those guys, like, no, I mean, those guys they're the best in the world, and they're monsters. I mean, they're perfect. So, but at the same time, like if I were to take I was talking to Ben CB about this, and I remember a couple months ago at a Raise Your Edge, Ben, and I was saying, like, you know, I'm a little frustrated with some of my results. Like, it's been annoying. Like, I just feel like I can't get it going in certain spots and blah, blah, blah. And then Ben started saying, well, you know, look, like you have a wife, you have a baby coming at the time, it hadn't arrived. You do a lot of other stuff. You travel, you're social. Like, so it's kind of like, you know, you have to really put it in perspective. Like, you know, am I studying 6 hours a day and playing and all the time. And like, like part of my thing is, that's sort of like, there's a reason, like I'm probably, I'm not at the top of my game, but I have a balance. So it's sort of like you gotta, and I'm not saying those guys don't, but it's definitely skewed to different degrees. So you just have to kind of be realistic. There's only so much time in the day. What are you doing? What do you want to do? What's important? And be realistic with what you're expecting. So I think that's important.
There's so many, areas of where I could go now, because you gave me so many signals to what topics I could be bringing up now, because you mentioned, having a balance in life, which I think we're going to get later too. We're going to get into how it is to be a father playing poker now. There's even more changes coming up. But before we bury the whole Twitch topic thing, I want to still go into a little bit with you about the content that you're producing. So when you started streaming on Twitch, I just want to hear, you said you love it, you love streaming and everything. I don't think that's necessarily true for everyone. I know it from personal experience. It's not something I like going on Twitch and streaming, but I wouldn't say I love it so that I want to do it like 3 to 6 times a week, because I know it wouldn't be for me. I'm not the streamer. I enjoy much more creating content like we're doing now, just because I think it suits me much better to interact with people than to be an entertainer sitting there in your office and just talking about things. I like interaction a lot, so I prefer to be on YouTube and still being a poker player, but I like the creative outlet in terms of YouTube. But why is it that for you, streaming is something you could do every day? I
love it, but it's similar like you're saying. I started a podcast as well because I do think, in theory, I was struggling. And sorry, I'll answer that question. I'm just started like thinking an overall perspective here, because it is the same thing. I actually love podcasts, love conversations. I love talking to people. I love talking to people that are passionate about what they do. Not necessarily just poker, but in general, like different people in their industries that have sort of thrived or emerged because of what, how much work ethic, dedication, and dedication to their craft. But I think I was struggling. I think I'm still trying to figure out what it is exactly, because I love talking to people. I love interaction. I love people. So is it Twitch? Is it YouTube? Is it podcasting? Is it having conversations? So, I'll just say that, like, I think that was one thing I was having a bit of I was off, because I remember I did a couple of YouTube videos where I recorded with like Chris Moneymaker, Phil Hellmuth, for example. And I did like a video and then I would put it up on my YouTube channel with talking with these guys. But that wasn't really the right format, because it's YouTube. People want to see highlights. They want to see vlogs. It was like conversation. I didn't even think about it at the time. And then all of a sudden I started thinking like, wait, well, I don't have a podcast. Like, talking to these people, I want to have like live, where people can live interact, but you're talking with someone, and also that you're able to maybe invoke something in a combo that you could then spark where someone, it could change their life, or they may think about something differently. They may say, wow, I want to do that, or why aren't I doing this, or think about things in a different way. So I think that's important. I think Twitch gives me that mixed element of that, where I can talk with people, interact. I can also kind of share how I'm feeling and what I do. And it just combines all of it in one. I can play poker with people getting to see and learn, also me to learn, because I can record it. I can talk about it. It's more fun. Like, I've been doing some stuff with Jungle Man where he's helped me with some things, but it's fun when I go through like, oh, hey, look at this YouTube video and look at this clip, instead of like sending a hand history and talking about it. So stuff like that, where it's like, I'm also using it as tools for me. I'm helping others. It's engaging. You can generate revenue from it, which is cool. Like, you have subscribers, you have some ad stuff, you have affiliates. So, to me, building sort of like a whole network of that is just fun. Like, I love it. And I genuinely do. And I think, honestly, like, I give myself maybe, I don't even want to give myself a grade, but if I were looking back on all my Twitch, I think I would do things a lot differently. A lot of times where I'm like 6-8 tabling, I think my results suffer because I'm not the best at doing that. Plus, like, when you would know, how many tables do you think it is when you're streaming on Twitch? It counts as like, if you had to equate it to how many tables to follow the Twitch chat. I mean, it depends how many people are on or whatnot, but it's 2 to 3 tables. Like, you're all of a sudden, like, if you're 4 tabling and following a Twitch chat, it's really like 6 or 8 tables maybe.
It can be really horrible. Like in my experience, sometimes back when I was streaming tournaments, it was like 2 years ago, and before that, before I got into PLO, I was sometimes playing 12 tables, and it was way too much. I just couldn't keep up with chat and everything. I wasn't a good streamer in that quotes. And I was just also worried about making money, because if I played less tournaments and I hadn't a successful stream, like, where was the money going to come from? Like, I wanted to win. I wanted to make some money playing poker. So there was always a conflict of interest, and that's, by the way, that's a big topic. I think whenever I talk with someone trying to accomplish a lot of things, conflict of interest is so big. Like you mentioned so many things, and the talk with Ben CB that now you're a father, you have a wife. There's so many things, you cannot have it all. It's just impossible. Of course, you can only do some maybe 80-20 where you just try to be super efficient, trying to get 80% of what you want with like just minimal effort. Which is very hard to do, of course, because you have to put out quality things on all the platforms that you're using. And, sometimes you fail. And when you say, or when you talk about content in general, I think it's also depending on us trying to try out different things on these platforms, on YouTube and Twitch. Maybe there's some sort of content that nobody has done before. And you just come up with this new format or just twist it a little bit, and then maybe people have a high interest in that. And you can only do that by trying out things. I mean, some of my videos, which have gotten a lot of views on YouTube, they weren't planned this way. Sometimes they were low effort and they just got a lot of views. And sometimes you put in a lot of effort and you don't get any views, even though you think it's quite valuable. But it's not about you. It's about what you create in the other person that's listening to your videos. So maybe you can talk a little bit about your experience of like YouTube views and when it comes to effort you put in, and then basically from what came on the other side. Like, what was the most rewarding video for you, basically?
The most rewarding YouTube video, or
the piece of content that people have sent you messages, and
I think the most rewarding one was doing the one in Vegas when my friend, who I had a piece of him, but it was fun because he won the World Series bracelet from his cell phone. So, and the crazy part was his phone was dying. He was at the Bellagio and he called me and I would live, my condo's nearby, and I brought him over. I got in my car, brought him a charger. I was even going to pick him up to like come over and then play at my house on a computer, because he was down to like close to the final table. He was chip leader. But it was just fun because I got in, I had the vlog camera and was running over and to the Bellagio, and then see him sitting outside, pick him up at the valet, and then go inside, and then he wins it, and we show some of the hands and all that. But it was just that. The fact that he won a bracelet on his cell phone, that I had the footage of some of that and that whole experience. I think that was just the most unique, kind of natural and crazy thing. That was Thomas Cannoli. So that was, I think 2017 or 18. Maybe it was my first, 2017, first summer I started the vlog. So, I mean, that was pretty crazy. I think that was just the most inspiring and unique format, just because it was kind of a hybrid of online, live, doing it, going. It was just very cool. So get a lot of good comments on that.
Yeah, and then also when it comes to the Twitch platform, I think a lot of times it's also, I think Twitch compared to YouTube is very competitive. Like YouTube, there's space for a lot of people because, well, you can make unique videos. Whereas on Twitch, it's really very clear what the audience wants, and that's playing poker tournaments and big scores. That's just what Twitch is all about. Sure, you're going to be entertaining character, but if somebody has a deep run and it's just final tabling a Sunday Million or something, this is just going to go where the attention goes most of the time. And it's not, even if you're a super good cash game player, sometimes, it's going to take off on Twitch a little bit. But I mean, compare how much was Ryan Fee playing for? And yes, he had a lot of viewers, but cash games are always falling short in terms of viewership behind tournaments, right?
Yeah, it's for sure the case. I mean, it's interesting. I was speaking of this. This thing I want to talk about a little bit was content. I think they've seen the GPI awards. They've gotten better in terms of production. They're doing some better things and more official and making it kind of more feel good. But it's just crazy how big they dropped the ball. This year with the categories and who was in them. Doug Polk and guys who didn't make one video were up for Vlogger of the Year. Myself, who I didn't stream as much. I was up for Streamer of the Year. I mean, not even me, but Somerville, who literally streamed once or twice or 5 times for the whole year, was up for it. It's just kind of it just shows there's no awareness.
You can't take it seriously. It's misinformation out there. Yeah.
At the same time, I kind of was I wasn't embarrassed because I streamed some, definitely less than I had in the past, but I thought it was arguable. I mean, you could look at some of these other guys like Finton, Spraggy, All in Pav, Matt Staples, that were really grinding and putting a lot and just coming up, really firing. But, at the same time, like it was like a weird feeling, because at the same time, like I feel like in terms of content, like I don't know if anyone overall puts out more content than me. Like even talking with like Instagram, I mean, I have stories running 24/7, whether it's up and coming stuff or giveaways, and like I do a lot of different things. I do the YouTube, I do Twitch, I'm managing with Thirst Lounge 10 project with Bill. I do stuff with Party Poker. I just have a lot of stuff that I do, and I'm just like always on. So, and again, I feel like there's not really a way of, I don't need an award, but it's just kind of like, I just feel like it's not really acknowledged, like who's doing what for the industry, and it doesn't really matter. So it's kind of like, but I feel like some of the people were in different categories that were mentioned that do a lot of good, but not necessarily for the right part of the category. Or being
you weren't in content creator in that one. You weren't in that one. That's what you're saying.
I guess, maybe there was a category for that. I don't know, but it's just like, it's funny to me because, this is something where I think it would be pretty simple to get like 5 or 10 people to like be on a board, or like to help with that, or, or 3, you have some people that really are to screen the process, to go through it, to make some sort of selection. And they try to do it right, because they take people in the industry and then they give them votes. But it's like people aren't watching Twitch, don't know Twitch. Like categories like that are so important for the industry, like streaming, YouTube, these things, there needs to be like people within that industry to really show what's going on and help with that, and then let the fans vote or whatever, So I don't know. It was a little bit disappointing, but it's also, I think they're on the right track. It's just like the most important part they got wrong, and then they did a lot of the others, like auxiliary stuff, as well. I thought they did some cool stuff, and how the awards are better, the show's better, the presentation's better, the outlet's better. It's like a good thing. It's just like, you got to get the people right. You got to fine tune the process and get the correct information there. So I don't know. Anyway, I just want to touch on that, because I think it is really important to give acknowledgement to people, or to like show it, but just to do it in the right way. I think there's something wrong there, but it's pretty clear that it was brought up now. I think like,
I think it's a great point, because when you think about it, creating poker content in general, there's a lot of incentives not to do it, especially for high stakes players. And I mean, you've been playing a lot of high stakes tournaments, high stakes cash games, and you're revealing some insight, right, from your thought process. You're revealing a lot of your personality, and that might hurt you in your games, right? So a lot of people that I've talked to that are actually playing higher than me, they said, why would I ever do that? Why would I ever make a brand? Why would I ever put out content? Because they're so worried about all of their opponents picking up information on them, especially when they're playing like 25-50 or something live. Then they're worried that everyone's picking up information, and then they can use it against them, so they will make less money. So it's all that financial aspect of them being less profitable in poker. Maybe even getting less into games. If you're perceived to be good or on YouTube and you reveal a lot of strategy information, maybe people will perceive you as being too good and then not invite you into games anymore.
Right.
So there's so many things that can basically tell you not to do it, but then some people just do it anyway. And I think that's something that I just want to do anyway, because I have all these things as well that have been worrying me in the past. But I say, what the fuck, opportunity cost is a third big thing. If you think about it, before, my channel is still pretty small compared to other channels, like it's growing, but I'm sure that, channels like yours in terms of monetization are just another world, especially because you get contacted by people for this and that, and so on and so forth. So the opportunity cost is actually pretty high, because I have to put in a lot of effort into what I'm doing on YouTube and Twitch, etc. But I'm not like monetizing it in a smart way whatsoever.
It is an interesting dynamic. I mean, it's very, it's just like a formula, the whole thing. You have to kind of weigh everything out, what you're doing, what you're not. I mean, it's interesting. It's very interesting, the whole Twitch. Like now with the squads, there's all kinds of other stuff. It's just like constantly getting more adaptive, more they're creative. It's interesting times within Twitch and within content. And man, you know, I don't know. I have so many ideas. There's so much stuff I want to do, but it's like it kind of comes down to it too. There's only so much time, and it gets a bit crazy, man. You know, you start thinking like, what's important? Do you want to play? Do you want to be better? Do you want to get better at poker? Do you want to spend extra time studying? Do you want to do? Because I personally feel too, I'm in like a weird spot where it gets hard because I'm like, well, I want to play, I want to stream. I also want to work on some things. Like even with the Raise Your Edge, like there's work I've done, but I haven't done there's no excuse. I should have done the whole course in and out and know it. Like I should just be perfect, but I'm not. Like I haven't done every single section. I haven't done all the different versions, but it's kind of like I find myself, well, do I want to do this or would I rather help with that? Like I have great people that help me. I have some things, but you know, just trying to allocate and do time and break up into what you're doing and what's important. It's very hard. And now it's all of a sudden, well, I have 2 extra hours. Do I want to spend it with my wife and son, or do I want to study? And like now there's live events. Do I go to the World Series? Do I stream on Twitter? It's just like there's a lot of like what ifs, and like you start weighing out, well, this is better, but this is more fun, and this is better for that, and this is then I can do this and this, or just that. And it just starts becoming like you kind of get lost sometimes in like what is the best overall net thing for you. And there's not necessarily a right answer, or you can't know for sure without maybe trying a little everything. And you know, I see some of these streamers kind of caught, and you get caught in no man's land. And when you're streaming, it is kind of like a matrix. When you get it, like during the former big series, like right now the KO series is coming up on Party Poker. Like it's intense. Like I'm planning to stream the 12th to the 19th. I mean, those days you're fighting for life. Like you're in there, you're up, you're fighting, you got everything. You're running giveaways. You got to play all day long. You got to keep track of this. You got people asking you for transfers. You doing transfers. You're you know, it's just so much stuff that goes into it. It's like by the time you're playing a 10, 12-hour session, you're exhausted. And it's like, you know,
are you taking some time off? Are you taking some time off before that week?
Yeah, I mean, it's coming, I guess, this Sunday, right? So
yeah, because now it's like you got 1 week left. Like, are you actively doing something before you get into this mad week?
Kind of. I mean, I'm with my wife, my son, my family has been visiting. You know, I'm basically going to be in and out to the Bahamas. Like that's what I've started weighing it all out. It's like, all right, Montreal, there's playground poker. I could go up there, but the feasibility spot for me is Bahamas. I have a studio in the Bahamas, and I can go without checking a bag now because I have all my setup there. I can go door to door with no check bag. I just get on a flight, 30-minute flight, right? I have to get there a little before. I land, go to my place, get things going. It's not that crazy, right? It's like actually not that crazy, but it's not ideal there. It's not where I want to be. I'm not going to bring my wife and son there, at least initially. You know, so it's like I'm going back and forth. Do I go for 1 day? Do I go for 3 days at a time? You know, do I go for the week for the thing? It's just kind of like one of those spots where it's like that's the best thing that I could come up with as an answer to do that. But even then, it's like it's complicated and it's not easy. But that's my issue. It's like kind of going back and forth and like what makes sense. I don't want to go every day. I mean, I could do it. I could like go play, take a morning flight, or like, you know, or come home at the end of the day and then fly the next morning, or go in on Sundays and stay. But it's just kind of like it's still a pain in the ass. Got to go to the airport. You got to
fly. But look, I mean, Ben CB, he's been completely right with what he told you. Look at it from this angle, where you are, the spot you are. You're saying you got a place in the Bahamas that you can go to. Like, think about it, like how far you are already accomplishing all these things at the same time, up to some level. Like other people would have to worry about renting that place, paying that monthly thing again, because then the living costs just go up a lot. So you're at a completely different place where you can actually afford having a place there and a place at home, and so on and so forth. And now, of course, having also a son is another thing where your attention will be even more scattered. It will be even in more places, and it's going to be even more demanding. But you're going to get used to it because, you know, the more days go by, you're training your mind and your capability of accomplishing more things day by day. And that's all you can do, I think.
I heard Sean Deeb say something. I was scrolling through Joey Ingram's podcast and with him, which was pretty interesting on some of the stuff we were talking about. But he was saying about the betting and poker and marriages and stuff, which is pretty crazy. But look, poker players bet on anything, so whatever. I get it, but it is. I mean, it's hard to have a relationship and really dive in to everything that you want to do and be, and you have to really have a great partner and understanding, because it's a lot of long hours. There's a lot of stressful times. There's a lot of, intensity situations. Cause luckily I was with Amelia, my wife, from the start. When I remember first starting Twitch, and I was like, you know what, I think this is going to be good. It'll be fun. It's going to be a grind, but I want to do it. I think it is one of those things that it's hard on a relationship with poker, because a lot of late hours. It's a lot of people. You lose aces to kings. You come home, like, it doesn't matter. Like, they just want to know how'd you do, and then you have to and then they start, and it's a very intense thing. It's like easy when things are going perfectly well, but when it's like you start having some adversity or some tough stuff, or you get in some weird spots in terms of stuff you have to do, or you're accommodating, or there's a lot of there's money lending, there's this, it's hard to really understand from another perspective. And I think that's it's a very difficult proposition, but I know it can work, and it has. I'm just saying in general, I think that's it's hard to be in a relationship and to date a poker player. Cause I mean, you touched on it too. We were talking beforehand a bit about bankroll management, asset management, time management. There's so many things that go into a great poker player. You show me the most talented player in the world, but I'll take the number 600 guy a lot of the time over that number one guy if does all the other things right. Being a good poker player doesn't mean that you're going to be successful. I mean, you can say that about a lot of things, athletes as well. You take the most talented athlete, doesn't mean he's going to be the best player in the NBA. I'd rather have the guy who's going to work hard, who's focused, who doesn't do all the, doesn't have bad habits, is honest and integrity, is willing to learn. All these things. There's so many variables that you can say for any job or anything, but poker in particular, there's a lot of management and a lot of there's a lot of within as a character, mental mindset, all these things that matter, sleeping right, exercising, there's 100 different things you need to be doing to have
yeah, I mean, also it's really important to basically break them down one by one and sometimes zone in on one of those areas, because if you're trying to get better at all at the same time, it's just going to be super tough. Sometimes you need to zone in and just do maybe you overwork your nutrition, for example, for a month. But before I get into these single areas in poker skill set, I just want to still stay at the topic of you now being a father. Do you get as much time as you would like to spend with your son and your wife still, or is that now are you now a bit in a huge conflict with the series coming up?
It's going to be teach his own. I would say the first few days were pretty crazy, and it's because I'll sleep in another room sometimes but my son hasn't really been crying that much. He's 2 weeks old now. He's been pretty good. I mean, obviously when he wants to breastfeed, he cries, but he's not a wailer. It's too early to tell though, how they're going to be or whatnot. So it's really hard. It's also at this age, the father doesn't really do anything. The truth of it is, for the first 3 months or so, the baby, they're relying on the mother for food, for everything. Of course you can hold him, you can spend time with him. Even now it's kind of fun how he'll you can play with his hands and he smiles a little bit and he'll, it's cool, but I don't know. I want to be as present and around as I can. It's even if you said, well, 3 months, you can't do anything. I don't want to just be gone and come back. I still want to watch him grow. I want to see him. I want to, be there and be around. So it's hard to say. This summer, it'll be the first summer I don't go to the WSOP the full summer. And that's partly because they can't travel. He's too young to fly. It's just one of those things. I'm going to probably, I have a relative plan of where I'm going to come and go, but who knows? The last 2 summers, I feel I got burnt out a little bit. I played every day. I was doing the vlogs. I was doing this weight, this fitness thing every morning. It was too much. Looking back at I know I get off on a tangent, but I think it could be good this summer to play less, come in and out and come in fresh and, want to start events on time. And I think it's part of it. I think I haven't been up to my optimal play. I think I had 10 winning summers in a row, good summers, and I lost the last 2. Not bad, but I was down overall. Sure. And when I look at it, I was I was coming in at 3-4 p.m. The event started 11 or 12 a lot. I was late regging too much. I was playing too much. I was tired. I was burnt out. My mind wasn't all there, and I wasn't at my best. So I think that's like this something I really want to come in and work on and be more on time, be more present, more focused, more hungry about what I'm playing, take it more seriously, be off my phone, because I get kind of lost where I do a little everything, where I'm like, oh, I'm doing the content, doing that, but it's like, I just feel like that my play suffered.
And when it comes to your WSOP plan in general, when you do play a lot and then do that content, you cannot just certainly do it all yourself. Like maybe you want to talk a little bit about how you work with delegation. You have to delegate certain things to certain people, and like how valuable has that been in your past over the last 2 years that you could have given some tasks that you're maybe not as good at, and you just want to delegate that to someone else. Like how has that experience been for you?
Yeah, no, I mean, I've been very fortunate. Adrian, who's a mutual friend of ours, he's been incredible. I've been working with him since the start. That's been huge, but I'm still looking, I think, for like an assistant or an extra component, because it's just one of those things where I'm like, I like to do things myself. I'd rather do it. Like if this guy, get him in my email and have him handle some shit, but like, I want to be the one doing it. I want to do everything. So being able to let go on some of that and trust people is important, but that's, yeah, it's something that I've been doing more of, having others help with, and sort of expanding. So I think that is important with delegation and being able to let go and let people, realize some things might not be exactly how you want them, but you need to let go of some of the responsibilities and be able to, so you can focus on certain things. So yeah, I think that's important, and it's not easy, because I get it. It's hard for people to, for people to do that, but realize that in order for you to output more and expand, you got to be willing to do that.
Yeah, and I think that's just the only way. Like if you can delegate something to someone else, it's the only way to accomplish like more when you want to have more things than just playing poker. If you have people helping you with that, and being really efficient at what they're doing. So otherwise, I think it's almost impossible. I mean, I have a hard time, doing all these things extra. Like in Vegas, I tried to put out some vlogs this summer, but yeah, I'm gonna need some help, and I'm gonna have to see like how good of a quality I can reach with a vlog, because of the time matters, right? And also I don't want to get burned out and being really tired at the games in the end, trying to do extra hours, because in the end relaxation is so important, and I learned a bunch of it in the last couple of months. And yeah, this is just I have to take care of myself more when it comes to trying to do too much on one day, and I'm having such a scattered attention. So it's a big topic in my life as well, and I haven't been nearly putting as much content out there as you have. So I still have a lot of room to basically do more, right? So yeah, that's basically a goal of mine. When it comes to poker skill sets, what do you think is your personal best 3 skills?
For me, hand reading ability. I think my ability to put people on hands is up there with some of the best in the game. I mean, Agranyu's got a lot of credit over the years of TV and calling specific hands, back in the day too, when I think it was a lot more surprising and crazy, right? Because now there's a lot more information, ranges, and constructing, and it's like, things make a lot more sense to a lot of people. But I just think in general, like I'm pretty good at knowing what people have, and that's obviously easier when you're playing like one table or live than when you're playing a crazy amount of tables online or streaming. But so I would put that, though. I would say hand reading ability. I think exploitatively, like I think I really know how to get the most out of people and what spots. And also I think I'll tie in with that is perception. I know how I'm perceived, whether it's by an individual or at a table. So I know what my image is, and I know how to kind of maneuver with that. So I know if someone thinks I'm a nit, or if I'm whatever. I know if someone thinks that I'm a great player, or they're like scared of me. I can feel, does someone want to battle with me? Like when I'm at a table, is someone like, they think like, oh, this Jeff Gross guy's a clown. Like I've seen him on Twitch, and like, I'm going to beat him today. I'm just going to fuck with it. Like I can tell instantly if someone wants to battle and do crazy stuff to me, or I can tell if someone wants to be my friend and just kind of, they're going to play soft or just kind of having fun. So I'd say I'm pretty good at deciphering where that range falls.
That comes very handy in live poker, doesn't it? Like doing that exactly. If somebody sits down at the table with you and you know how they are going to go about playing versus you, this is extremely valuable.
Yeah, for sure. Like spots where they're capable of bluffing or not, and just in general. And then the third, I would just say, you said for is poker strengths or things that are uh, another part
Yes,
of my game.
skill sets. I mean, I could give you a couple of things like bankroll management, game selection. What else is
Well,
there?
yeah, I would put those both into
Mindset.
one. I think bankroll management is probably one of my best things too. I'm not afraid to, I'll sell action or pieces if I'm playing a bigger game or a bigger tournament. If in spots, like I'm very risk adverse and I'm very comfortable. I've got a nice formula down where I don't feel like I don't have that. I never have had that urge to take shots. Like even I played as big as 1K, 2K, no limit cash games, but it's like, selling big pieces or whatever. Like it's like kind of part of it's like experience to be involved or to do things, but I don't have the ego. If I think I have a great spot, I'm still not going to like put a crazy amount of my bankroll on the line or something. I'm just not like, I'm very happy with the way I've done it and how I have always done it. And, listen, I'll take a shot here and there. I mean, I've pressed the edges. It's funny. I've actually like taking bigger risks in my role potentially on like pieces of people in games or a spot maybe bigger than I'd even play in a certain situation or a bet. But I rarely do it. And I just want to really feel like I have a good spot if I'm going to be putting a lot of money in, and I don't want to affect my day to day. So I'm not greedy. I don't mind doing it the slow and steady way. And I think that's important. Like, I think that's something that's always been a strength of mine. And I've avoided really some potentially tough situations. A lot of people I know that are very successful or good players have been broke or, find themselves in some really weird spots that I just been really do my best to avoid at all costs, these type of situations over the years.
There's also in the US, I know that the presence of private games, whether they're in a casino or somewhere else, is like pretty huge. So how does your opinion go about private games, and are you happy with the way the poker industry is going to change when it comes to that?
Where it's going to, yeah,
the way it's going, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, private games always have been a thing. I mean, whether it's private games at a place like as an establishment or, in private games in homes, I think a lot of that is to do with networking and just being observant, aware, and trying to put yourself in good spots. But yeah, I think it's just part of the culture. It's part of how it is. I mean, everything's not fair. It doesn't mean, if you're a good player, it doesn't, or if you're a fun guy, it doesn't mean you're necessarily going to get to play in the best games. A lot of that is part of that's luck, I think, as well. Like being in a spot where a game spreads, knowing someone that it can make those decisions that you get in. But, it's just one of those things. I think there's not really a lot you can say about it. It's just kind of how it is. And,
and what I personally saw in that topic is that a lot of poker players actually, there was a lot of entitlement when it comes to private games on who should play and shouldn't be allowed to play. I heard more and more this year than ever before when it comes to that, because apparently a lot of poker players, they're just too miserable at the tables, and it has become so much worse, which wasn't really my experience. But I've been playing in Europe. That's different than in the US. But a lot of people complain that, some people are just too miserable and, too nitty or whatever, and you cannot play with them. And that's why these private games are just, becoming more and more of a thing. So my question to you is like, how many % of players have you seen playing with you at the poker table anywhere that you think shouldn't be allowed to play in certain rounds? A percentage. Can't say anything.
It's hard. I mean, I guess when you're talking about like from tournament players, I mean, that randomly I play with, but if you mean from cash games, I mean, the games I play are generally are private games, and that game, then there's not this issue because like they're just not there. But it's interesting. I for sure I can see some of these guys and some of these higher stakes players and some of the ones putting the hood over their thing and being like tanking for minutes. I mean, that there's no place for that, and it's terrible in general. And I get it; it's real money, it's serious. You want to do your best or whatnot, but at some point, it just kind of it's overboard. So I would say, I would just say it's it's not good. And like that, you're actually doing a lot of damage to the game when you do that. Just in general, you're adding to this perception of the poker like this. You're really doing a disservice to everybody in the game when you do those type of maneuvers that are frowned upon in recreationals or just in general. People don't like, whether they're a fun player, if you will, or a serious player. No one really likes. It just takes away sort of the natural beauty of the game. So I see Ali in the chat, man. What's up, bro? He's saying good, great vlog series from you. Another great guest. Is this a background green screen? No, this is actually my table here in Miami. This is my office / desk. So yeah, this is Miami, and no, this is not a green screen, but it is definitely a fun place to play. I wish I could stream fully here. I can play. I can't play on the sites I want to play when I stream Twitch. So that's unfortunate. Hopefully that'll change in the future. But yeah, I still do podcasts from here and I record some content, but yeah, and have games.
All he mentions is still control, and that is like a weakness of his, and what you would recommend him to work on.
Yeah, I think whether it's doing some sort of mind coaching program. I mean, I like Elliot Rowe and his material. There's a bunch of different guys out there and stuff, but whether you're talking with friends, whether it's just get up from the table. I mean, I know for me, I have no problem like sitting down, and even if things are going really poorly or I feel something, just like, I lose a big flip or a cooler, I don't really have a problem. Like I think part of the problem, people in general don't like to be stuck. I think if you look at poker on an individual session, we're all guilty of it. I'm the same way. I mean, I don't want to book a loss. I don't like it. I'd rather, even it's like a multi-table tournament. Maybe if I'm down in the day, I want to fire a few more extra tournaments, try to get a chance to get unstuck. Or if you're in a cash game, you don't want to. If you're not, like, it's funny. People will be down like 200, like say, a couple blinds, but they just can't imagine leaving down like a bit. They'd rather like risk a lot to get unstuck a little. I think this is a pretty common mindset. And I think it's something to notice too when people play, like especially in cash games, like you can really notice people are losing. They're going to play a little worse. They're going to do extra things. You'll see the ranges opening up. And this is just sort of like a default, I believe.
This is why pot limit Omaha is actually a better cash game than a no limit hold'em.
Why is that specifically? Because of people getting...
Because if people just get stuck in pot limit Omaha, their table is on fire. And then it's a lot of action. It's just insane. People getting stuck at pot limit Omaha, you cannot imagine how different the game can be from when it's starting. I've seen tables starting at pot limit Omaha. Everyone's like chilling, limping in, doing some little stuff. But then the right people get stuck, like 3 or 4 of them, and the table is just on fire. It's just madness for the next hour. Sometimes every single pot gets big. It's just insane. And then chips flying around. You cannot imagine, like if you're playing more and more pot limit Omaha, this is what you're going to experience, especially at your limits that you're playing.
Yeah, no, I'd agree with that. I think so. I think that's like important to be able to be someone that can get up, can stand up, or at least be able to like realize it, to be able to actually be aware of it in game, which is very hard too. Like that, even not saying just like every time you're down a little bit, just leave or something. But I'm just saying it's important to understand that. It's also important to understand that for others, that you can capitalize and be aware who really, like levels of tilt, who's like off the rocker, who just loses their mind. Sometimes it's very obvious, but sometimes it can be subtle. Like it could be even as simple as you're in a cash game, midway through or deep in the night, and a guy's stuck and you're in a spot where on the river, you're like, man, like I kind of need to, is this sort of hero call situation, but like, is this guy capable of bluffing? And maybe he's going for it because he's stuck, whereas they're winning and they like are less likely to bluff, stuff like that. I think it's good to be aware of, and that does matter.
If you know about that, it's pretty huge. If you know that somebody's stuck, and then some of those guys who are stuck, they're super capable of bluffing, trying to get the money back. And some of them are even more risk averse when they're stuck and then not bluffing when they're stuck. There's like 2 types of players or even more than that. But you've also getting a little bit into PLO lately, right?
I like it. It's fun. I've played for a while. I mean, I took down a tournament at Run It Up Rio. I'm sorry.
Reno.
I was in Rio recently for a PLO 556 max tournament. I mean, that was a lot of fun. It was Yeah, it's fun. It's just a fun game. I mean, I love it. PLO tournaments I play more of. I've played some big PLO cash games, and I'm fairly aware of I like to think I'm a winning PLO player, but I'm not. I'm definitely not a sorcerer, but I think I'm pretty good. And PLO tournaments are, you can be a little tighter. I think obviously there's no annies, and it's an interesting format, but I love it. I hope I get to play some of those bigger events at the WSOP this summer. Those look like some fun ones.
Actually, versus min raises, you can only fold versus something like 5 to 10%, depending on whatever happens in the big blind. So the game is really tight without annies, but when you're in the blind, then you're super loose, and when you're outside the blinds, you need reasons to enter the pot because, well, you're so shallow, and then the threat of somebody having aces at the table is always high. So if you're like at 30 big blinds, and then if you cannot make it too big, because if you don't have an ace blocker, for instance, chances that everyone else has aces is just combined so big that you're just putting in too much money. And you're always offering the big blind a good price anyway, so only very few hands qualify in PLO tournaments. So it changes a lot of the dynamics. And then ICM comes into play, where it's even worse to get it in pre-flop in PLO MTT strategies. So it changes a lot from cash games to MTTs. And a lot of no limit players and then PLO cash game players, they might not adapt in the right way. And it's also been a topic of Sean Deep's podcast. I don't know if you've heard it, that he said he would take any tournament player that's actually understanding PLO over a PLO cash game pro. So that's his opinion. So it has to be at least some validity to that if he's saying that, which I found really interesting. In that,
saying he would rather take a no limit tournament player in a PLO tournament than a PLO cash game player in a PLO.
Well, he said that the no limit tournament pro who has understanding of PLO up to some level is better than the PLO cash pro who doesn't play ever in a tournament.
Right, that makes sense. I think that makes a lot of sense.
Because some people might just blow up on the bubble with like really marginal stack offs. They're not going to be able to fold aces when it's appropriate, it's definitely appropriate sometimes to fold aces in a bubble situation or in a huge ICM situation. So
are you I guess like how in a spot, it really all depends, but something like a really bad aces, are you flatting sometimes instead of 3-betting just when you're or like out of position? Like if you're in the big blind and the cutoff opens and you have like ace,
7 deuce, rainbow. I'm mostly still flatting in tournaments. If it's really bad aces, I'm not gonna 3-bet them, especially if I have like 30 big blinds or 20 or something like that. I cannot get in enough money before the flop, and I'm playing against a not so loose range that can. It also depends on whether somebody's like ready to fold to 3-bets, because if they're not, you're not pushing a lot of equity, and that's a real problem.
I mean, if you have ace 7 deuce off and they're opening and you're up against whatever, there's obviously worse hands to be up against than some, but like even like a king, or whatever, queen, jack.
And the problem is if they have a hand like 10-9, 6-5 single suited or something, which is still really bad, but they can still pick the flops to fold. And like imagine if they have 10-9, 6-5, they can still pick those king, queen, deuce flops. That's not a gutter, is it? No, it's already a gut shot. But anyway, like they can, or all the pair boards like king, deuce, deuce, and all those boards, they can obviously still afford to just fold, whereas they can just pick their spots where they make a pair or even 2-pair, or like a pair and a gutter or something, and then go with that and put a lot of pressure on your naked overpair. So in that case, it's really crucial to not overplay your aces and take that marginal spot when ICM is a thing, and you have to be really aware that you don't want to torch your money in these situations, because so many others will benefit from you busting due to ICM.
Sure. Okay. That's interesting. I love that. I love the PLO tournament stuff. It seems a lot of fun. I want to play more this summer. I think I'm going to play. I mean, that 10K PLO and the 25K PLO seem insane. They just seem like they get a lot of runners and they're huge prize pools. But I don't know. What do you think are some of the better PLO value tournaments this summer?
Well, I made a whole schedule, and obviously I couldn't play the 25K without selling like a massive action. So what I'm gonna play is like every buy-in from 500 to 3K. So
Right.
I'm just gonna fire at those if I'm playing them, and then see whether there's some 10K that I can sell action for, or yeah. Basically, I think, and they're all over the place. There's some in the Venetian, there's some in the Rio, there's some in where even Planet Hollywood, maybe a little bit higher raked, but maybe softer. Who knows? Like, so I'm going to check them out and see who's playing where. I'm going to try to see what the cash games are like as well, and then compare and then reevaluate every day and see where I can make some money when I go to Vegas.
Yeah, it seems like it's gonna be it's crazy, man. I'm just thinking about the summer right now. It's almost like I just think it's hard to like not think about. It's just to be there and running around just seems too much fun. So I don't know. I'm not sure how much I'm gonna be there. I want to be there a lot, but I also don't want to be away from my wife and son, and I'm gonna probably do the bounce back, but it's so far too, you know. It's like annoying to fly back and forth. It's like something about being in a rhythm, being there, but I don't know. I got to figure it out.
And jet lag is a thing, and then you don't want to just always be jet lag flying back and forth, and yeah. Or how many hours is it actually?
It's probably it's a long flight, Vegas to Miami. It's like 4.5, 5 hours. Yeah, it's a lot. It's a good hike, but it's all right. We'll see. We'll see. It's going to teach on this summer. We'll see what happens. Like I said, that may be my best summer. I just got a feeling, but we'll figure it out.
You can only learn from that, right? Something that I also have been really interested in, and that I've seen on your social media, is that you actually had a retreat where I'm not sure like how much meditation was involved, but you had to just give your phone to away, and then you just weren't allowed to use anything or communication for 10 days. Can you walk us through a little bit about how that experience went?
Yeah, my wife is very into these type of courses, classes, and she found this one, and it's called Vipassana meditation, a retreat. We went to, it was just south of, it was just south of Dallas. It was like a 30-minute drive, but it was 10 days. So you give your cell phone, there's no writing, no reading, no texting, talking, at all. So like, there's no, you're not reading books, you're not talking to anybody, you're not writing things down. So it's like literally just complete immersion of meditation and quiet tranquility. You can walk around. There's like an hour and a half period a day or something. You have lunch, and then you can like walk outside and do stuff. I mean, you walk to a meditation thing, but it's pretty much, it's crazy. It's honestly like it's a wild thing, man, because you legitimately cleanse your body. Like you're just like the emotion, you replay your life. You're just so, it's very hard to explain, but it was an out of body experience. And by the end, you know, it felt like you were on acid, or kind of like on the last day when it was like all over. It was just like, it was a really hard to explain feeling. But I actually, when I did it, I came out of the course and I wrote down, I had like all these poems I wrote down. I had all this visions and ideas. And I said, I'm going to start a YouTube channel. I'm going to do these things. I want to do this. I want to have that. So like, I actually it like really sparked some creativity and some drive, and it sparked some stuff for me. So it was definitely, I mean, I think there's 3-day versions. There's 30-day versions. You know, like 10 was a stretch. You know, looking back on it, I wish I had done. I could have probably bet it, but I mean, it was a course, but it was not a for sure I was going to finish. Like there was days where I was like kind of losing my mind. I mean, I was, you know, I was very not. It was very, very uncharted waters, and it was quite an experience. So I would highly recommend it.
Basically, it's just you and your mind, right? That's just it. That's all you get.
Yeah.
And eating. And are you allowed to go? I mean, obviously not a gym, but are you allowed to do like push-ups and all these kind of things, and some, I don't know, body exercises?
Yeah, you could do some of that. They say don't really to work out, you know, but there's no gym, so you could do some squats or some push-ups and whatnot. But I actually didn't do anything really. I just walked. I would walk each day for when I could walk during the time and whatnot.
So you get 1.5 hours to go outside for a longer walk, and then
yeah, it's a nice place, nice scenic area. But yeah, I didn't see my wife at all. She was in like the women's side. I was on the men's side. It was very cool, very cool.
All right, how did she go with the whole course? Like, what was her experience like when you talked about it afterwards? And also, you didn't. I mean, yeah, you didn't talk with each other for 10 days, which I guess when you're on tour, like you're talking to her maybe daily or yeah, I mean, so
Yeah,
it's totally different.
she loved it. She loved it. It was very powerful for her. Meditation's hard too. It's hard to meditate for 2 hours at a time, a couple times a day, or there was times where you go. It was like meditation numerous times a day. Then there's like quiet time in your room. But you're going to bed early. You're eating very little, like super little in the morning. The breakfast, are light. The dinner, you're eating like a light soup at like 6 p.m. or something, or no, 4:30 or 5 p.m. Like very, very light. And then that's it. And then you go to bed at like 9 or something and wake up at 4. I mean, it was intense. It was definitely intense and very beneficial. And I would highly recommend it. I had a YouTube video on it as well.
Yeah.
I think very quick. It was like just recap. Like I forget when it was. I must have done it in 2016 or 17 now. Maybe 2017 in February actually makes sense, I think.
So there you have it, guys. If you're interested, we're going to drop all the social media links in this video below afterwards, so you can definitely find everything and just make sure to check it out if that's something that interests you. Maybe you have some questions in the chat as well. Now, I just want to address some of the things that have been asked before. I didn't want to interrupt. David is a little bit worried about, random number generators and frequencies and so forth. And I basically just replied quickly in chat, said like only 1% do that. I think that in general, people are a little bit too much afraid of how far people are in poker. Like, yeah, the games have become tougher, but there's still so much softness out there in all terms of poker strategy and also, being a poker player, because it's not just all about strategy. We talked about it a lot in this podcast. You have to be ready in so many terms when it comes to playing at the tables, especially in live poker, I think, where you just tell so much more about yourself, the way you behave. So I wouldn't be so worried about it. Like, what's your take on that? Like, if people are too worried about people being too skillful to be...
Yeah, I wouldn't worry about it, especially in the majority of the fields. And you're talking 500, 1Ks, 2Ks, even 3K, 5K, getting big fields. There's going to be a lot of people. It's different live than online. Like, listen, I love online poker. It's great. And like Party Poker is doing some cool stuff. They're looking to get rid of some HUDs and other stuff. But even with all that, I mean, we're talking about live poker. Like, people are, it's just different. It's just different. You're not running stuff. There's so much more exploitative. There's so much more in-game stuff. Like, you're never going to be at a point where you're just like, oh, this is impossible, or like it's solved, or it's so hard, or this guy's like, whatever. Like, yeah, people have gotten better. People are a little more understanding of board textures and aren't punting maybe as much, but it's still wide open. Live poker events are up. Field sizes are up. Guarantees are up. I mean, poker is humming. U.S. passing in West Virginia, Michigan's back on the ballot. It's going to pass Illinois, New York, all this stuff. Like, poker's not going anywhere. There's also different variations. There's PLO, short deck, other things. Like, poker's timeless. There's always going to be games. There's always going to be good action. And it's, I would not worry about poker and all this stuff. Like, there's,
There you have it. I mean, this is like a super good quote I can use maybe for later on, where you just take away people's fears. Say, look, poker is going to be soft. Don't worry about it, especially live poker. So if somebody asks you on stream, hey, should I get into professional poker? What do you tell them?
Well, I mean, I wouldn't quit your day job in general. Like, I think it's something that you need to kind of segue into, figure out if it's for you, understand how it works. I think it's a great thing. I think it's cool if you want to stream as well. Try to pick up a little supplemental revenue, build some stuff. It's fun too. People can then watch you, family, friends, can sweat, can kind of check on you. And I think it's just one of those things. I wouldn't say like quit what you're doing just to hop in, unless you had an unbelievable game, like a reliable home game or game at a local casino that you're doing very well at. But you need to have some results. You need to have some sort of something to go off of. You can't just say like, hey, I won a couple times at my session, I'm going to be a professional poker player. Like, it doesn't work like that. You want to have other revenue coming in. You want to have backups. You want to have your separate life role for your poker role. And, you just got to be careful. That's another thing. I never want to send the message like poker players the dream, do it, quit it. It's so lucrative. You're going to crush it. Like, no, this is like I've been playing since I was 15 years old. I've done a lot of other stuff. I have a lot of other incomes that come in. in terms of like stuff that I built or side things. So it's not just like, oh, poker this, poker that. You can do poker and have a great life. Like that's never what I want to try to push, that message, but it's something that's cool. You can get better at. You can have a supplemental income, and if you want to become a professional, that is an option. Doing things the right way, responsibly, and that's possible. So like, it's definitely, I just think it's important to be clear and not be trying to shepherd people into the game blindly and say everything's going to be great. And, it's like hard too with the US, like with the online not being basically, other than Jersey, there's no online. It's kind of hard. Like if online poker comes back to the US, it makes it a lot more feasible where you can stream, you can, from the US, more you can play. There's other tournaments. There's things will be a lot different. And that's a bit of ways away, but that's, that's down the line.
Yeah, because in live poker, sometimes the game gets killed, and that's actually pretty bad, right? Like if you have that one game and you otherwise have to drive for hours, then you have to maybe move. And then if your game gets killed, that's a little bit stupid in live poker. Whereas in online, you can just play anytime if you're living in the right country. So that's going to be, pretty different. So another thing that I wanted to ask is, people are so heated about when it comes to their opinion in poker. How often do you get berated?
I don't really get berated. Definitely on my YouTube videos, YouTube in particular, like I'll put up hands or replays. There's stuff where people comment on a hand or something and say, "Oh, that's terrible," or "How did you do that?" But I mean, whatever. Like that's going to happen. I mean, sometimes they're probably even right, like on this certain hand. But you have to remember from a Twitch session or playing multi tables, and like they also don't have necessarily information or a dynamic or whatever. And it's like kind of, it's funny too. Like there was a hand from my latest YouTube video where it was deep in the 320 Gladiator on Party, maybe from last Sunday or Sunday before, not this one, so like a week ago, and I was down to like 28 people, and it was like 900 person tournament. It's like 35K to first. It was a decent bit to first. And I made a pretty questionable play where I almost folded pre-flop. Then I called flop with middle pair. Turn got dice here. I called, and then the river called the all in. And I kind of thought what the guy had, but I started talking. I talked with Jungle Man, a few others about the hand. And like, they actually, like after looking it over, they were like, you know what, actually, I like it. I like the call. It's just funny. Cause like in my mind, I was like, man, it feels kind of bad, but it was close. And then people in the chat are like, oh, it's terrible. But then you have some of the best players in the world who are actually like, I think it actually is the right player. You got to be, so it's like interesting. Poker's sort of one of those things where
they cannot be results
are ambiguous. There are certain spots, or like, you got people that are chat pros that could be like $2 grinders or 50 cent or never played. They're telling you advice, whereas like you have to realize they probably don't know anything. And then they're telling you on spots. So people get very articulate, laid out feedback. And I'm like, oh, this guy really seems like he knows talking about, maybe in this, he might be right. Or that was a hand I wasn't sure about, but it's interesting. People definitely.
That's a bit the beauty about poker. Everyone can tell like what their opinions are, and they will voice it. They will tell you. Jimmy in the chat will tell you, this is how poker is played, man. What have you done? What the fuck?
For sure. And no, I think part of my game too, I think part of my thing over the last couple of years, I'm looking, it's like, it's a fine line between finding places or parts of your game that that I'm playing too tight in, or that, because I'd much rather have less cashes and bigger scores than min cashes or cashes. So I think that's some area of my game. I'm looking at certain spots where I can try to go for bigger pots. I'm sorry, 2 seconds. I got to Postmate.
Sure. All right, maybe you guys have something in the chat to ask while Jeff is making his post. I think he has a podcast coming up in about 30 minutes. He has Hodded on his channel as well. So he's going to make that post for the podcast coming up. And he's probably just going to have a few more minutes before we wrap this podcast up. So if you guys have any questions, just let me know now. I'm also going to go through, what all the questions were coming up. If there's something. We got
back here.
Yeah. Do you know something about Limitless? He came from free rolls to high stakes.
That's a player's name?
Yeah, Limitless. He's a high stakes hold'em.
Heard of the name. I don't really know anything about him.
Okay, yeah. I figured like otherwise A lot about tilt control and A-game course from Elliot Rowe. So have you done some sessions with Elliot Rowe as well, or just bought like some?
Yeah. So I've done a bunch of courses, well, one-on-ones with him. So yeah, I've used him a lot. I think, it's funny because I started using him, I believe, in Barcelona of last year. Had a good result, a good deep run, a good thing that we were kind of talking about some of this things about finding ways to go deep, go for it, take more chances, get more chips. But then also just some of the other areas of my life or stuff that was going on, I think it's really come through, like where things are really coming, shaping up and happening. So I find I've had good success with him and feel very, very comfortable with what he's doing and the message that he's done. So I've liked working with Elliot a lot. And I know a lot of people that have really good results. So it's been good.
Yeah, a lot of the high roller scenes, they have been working with Elliot, and I mean, they've all had their results being pushed by that, by just working on these other areas of poker, on mindset, and just becoming much better and gaining edges basically with stuff. Because in the end, it's going to be about small edges at these stakes, and so you just have to get every edge that you can.
Yeah, it's crazy. It really is. Like it makes a huge difference. Stuff like that. Like you need to talk about finding edges. Like the mental side of it is just there. That's, I think, maybe the area where there's the most room to separate yourself, because it's just people aren't putting the work in, or people aren't doing these things, or they're coming in. It's just like it's at some level people know how to play poker pretty well. And what are you doing that's going to separate you from the pack? So for sure.
Who do you look up to in poker and outside of poker?
Interesting. Yeah, in poker, I mean, Ben CB for sure. I really respect what he's done with building that course with Raise Your Edge, and his work ethic, and just kind of coming up and putting it all together and building the community he's built. And Brian Rast, Antonio Esfandiari, it's two of my closest friends, also in poker, that really see how they've conducted themselves and carried themselves and put themselves into great situations, and the results they've had is big. I mean, off the table, there's a lot of people. I don't think people necessarily know who they are, right? Because they're not poker players or known. But I mean, Bill Perkins, Michael Phelps, Dave Silverman, my brother-in-law. There's a lot of people that really have done a lot, or just really been positive influences and been generous with their time and believing in me, and just kind of helping with me, giving me opportunities. So those stand out. But yeah, I mean, there's a lot of people I could really, my wife, my family, my parents. It's just, there's been a lot of support and a lot of, really beneficial opportunities. Vadran's been really supportive, and there's been some interesting times, and like, where I'm like, oh man, I don't know if I want to do this, or is this worth it, to like all the grinding and this and that. So it's, it's really the people around me, the closest, my friends and people that have been there and just sort of stuck with me when times are, when I spend some struggles, or when things are really good, and keep me sort of down, even keeled, whether it's good or bad, to make sure everything stays sort of in neutral and progressing forward. So
what has poker taught you in life the most?
I think it's dealt with the highs and lows, and kind of just taught me that things are always changing. It's like things can really happen fast, can go from things that don't look so good to go really good fast, and that you have to you really have to make the best decision with the information you're given that's imperfect. That's the best thing. That, like, there's just so much times where you like, well, I want to do this, or I don't know if I should do that, but you're just never going to you don't know the turn, you don't know the river, you don't know other things, like how things will play out, but you have information, you have your gut, your instincts, and you kind of have to go for it in certain spots. You have to take some chances, and you have to be willing to move on from the result. With whatever happens, you have to be able to push forward. And I think that's just like, I really think poker applies to real life and real life situations and jobs, like, so perfectly in so many ways. Like, even my dad now, he loves playing poker. He wishes he had played earlier. He thinks that, he was a controller at Ford Motor Company, Ivy League background, and just loves poker and wishes he had played it earlier, and just thinks it applies so much to everyday life. And I agree with that. So, there's a lot of different ways you could tie it, but I think dealing with high stressful situations, dealing with, having to make decisions. Having to make decisions is really, that's something a lot of people don't like to make decisions, and poker forces you to make a decision at every point. So.
All right, Jeff, thank you very much for taking your time being here on the podcast. I want to just quickly, as a wrap up, also asking you like where people can find you, just you can address the audience and say where they can find you. And then one question, who would you want to see on the podcast next?
On your podcast?
Yes.
I would like to see, let me think. I mean, I have guest lists on mine. I'm trying to think. Are you on poker or otherwise, or mostly poker?
I'm mostly in poker. Yeah, poker player podcast. So I'm going to be talking with poker players about their lives around poker mainly. Yeah.
Let's see. Someone interesting, I think, is, well, I mean, I'm trying to think people they could have been on mine already, or anyone.
Sure, anyone.
I think you'd like, Brian Rass would be cool. I think, he's really interesting to talk with always about stuff, and, gearing up for the World Series and how he does everything. So I think, he's one of my closest friends, and he's also just really engaging and fun guy. I think.
Do you think he would have some time?
Maybe.
Yeah.
I could. Yeah. I mean, I talked to Rast a lot. I could check in with him if you gave some slots for availability. Yeah, I could check with Rast.
And then where can people find you? I mean, we talked a lot about it also, YouTube, Twitch, and so on, but just quickly say what you're,
Yeah, so I stream on Twitch, jeffgrosspoker.tv. I also have a podcast, Jeff Gross Podcast, Jeff Gross Poker across YouTube, Instagram, all across the board. That's basically, I put a lot of content on those channels. So you can find me there. And I'm always in the mix. Twitter as well, all of it. Like to stay up on everything and stay active. So be great if you guys come check me out. If you do, say where you came from, let me know that you were watching. And it's awesome, man. I love what you're doing, and glad to be on here. And we'll definitely be in touch. And I'll see you at the series. I'm sure at some point I'll be there. So if there's any great PLO events, definitely send me a message. I'd like to check. I don't really know I've seen some of the WSOP schedule. I don't really know what else.
So, yeah, I can let you know if you want to know about a PLO event. If you got some spare time between the other events and if you're out there, just let me know. I can send you a schedule. I can actually send you the file that I got, and then you have an overview.
That'd be great.
All right.
So
thank you a lot.
All right.
And guys, if you are listening to this podcast on iTunes later on, you can always find the episodes there. This has been on youtube.com/UntitledChapter. Thanks for tuning in, guys.